My friend Hebe went from 0 to over 500,000 followers on social media in the space of just 2 years using this one strategy. Building this audience then led to her building an extremely successful online business, which she now runs full time. She went in depth on this strategy, as well as a lot of other things such as monetizing her audience, when I recently had her on my podcast. I'll link that below for you to listen to later, but for now, I want to summarize this one key strategy. Now, building a large audience, whether it's a personal brand, a business page, a theme page, whatever it might be, often comes down to one key thing, and that is building a strong community of loyal fans, which is built one person at a time. You see, often when you set out to build a big audience, say 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 followers, maybe you're even going for 500,000 or 1 million, you tend to focus on accumulating as many followers as you can to reach your goal, which makes sense. However, you'll notice that a lot of the strongest brands on social media and in Instagram specifically are built with a really cult fan base, which can otherwise be seen as a community or raving fans. Now, these pages that understand this and that have become wildly successful on Instagram tend to understand their target audience really, really well, publish content that directly speaks to these people, so they feel a very deep connection with the brand. And oftentimes this content polarizes people who aren't in their target audience, which is also extremely helpful. On top of this, they tend to interact very strongly with their audience. They reply to the comments, they reply to the DMs, they reply to the story questions, the story polls. They look at what their audience is talking about, they look at the conversations, and they use that to understand what content can they make to also simply interact with their fans. And to make this clear, this is definitely not scalable. However, at the start, building those cult followers and that cult fan base, one person at a time, then gives you an army of a few hundred, a few thousand people that are then engaging with all of your content, that are tagging their friends, that are commenting on all of their posts because they feel like it's a community they're a part of. And when this happens, your account will reach a tipping point where you might only be gaining 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 followers a day for a few months. But then eventually you get this really strong audience of a few thousand people, and your content just starts taking off because you've got a few thousand people engaging with all of your posts, which is sending that out in the algorithm to more and more people. And each time you post, you just build momentum with your community, which allows you to take off. Look at Hebe's account, for example. She started on Instagram in February of 2020. And she already had a few thousand followers on her account to begin with, which I believe were friends and people she'd known from the fitness community. The first month that she was posting, she was gaining about 10 to 15 followers per day on average. And bear in mind, this was going all in on trying to build the platform. This was when the lockdowns just came into play, and she was giving this a huge amount of attention, posting 1 to 2 very valuable pieces of content every single day. So it was like a full-time thing, gaining 10 followers a day. In the second months, doing the same thing, that same level of commitment, she was gaining about 25 to 30 followers a day on average. Then after these 2 months, which might take longer if you're not in lockdown committing all of your time to it, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 6 months, it could be 12 months. But after this, she'd amassed a community of a few thousand people who were really loyal followers, engaged with all of their stuff, and that had a strong connection with her. And so in the third month of going all in on this, she averaged 300 followers per day, more than a 10x increase from the month before of daily growth. And this trend continued. She continued to grow at that sort of rate up until recently, which has allowed her to get to 500,000 followers, about 200,000 on Instagram and another 300 and something thousand on TikTok, all because she laid the groundwork at the start to build a strong community and then keep doing those things. Rather than just aimlessly posting content, trying to find some viral trends, making sure you got the right hashtags, etc., look at how you can build a community, because all of those things will help. But when you have that community of people who love your content and who feel a part of the brand and feel that it directly speaks to them, you will get much better engagement, which leads to much better reach and much better growth. It also leads to much better monetization, but we'll save that for another video. Now, before I show you 3 actionable things you can do to build a strong community and stand out on Instagram, a little bit of self-promotion. Now, you should really go and listen to the full podcast with Hebe to hear her explain this strategy in depth, as well as our podcast with Ben Levitt and Taylor Riley. This new podcast of mine is a weekly podcast where I sit down with successful digital entrepreneurs, experts, and creators to uncover the secrets of how they've found success online. I've published 3 episodes so far with Hebe, who I'm talking about in this video, Ben Levitt, who is a fellow YouTuber, and Taylor Riley, who manages over 15 million followers. And then each week I'll be adding a new interview with another wildly successful entrepreneur or creator to find out how they did it. It's on all of your favorite podcast platforms, as well as the video versions are going on YouTube. So I'll leave those 2 links below where you can find the audio only as well as the YouTube channel. Now, something for you to celebrate the launch of this, if you go ahead and leave a review on iTunes or Spotify of this podcast, then comment down below in this video, review followed by your question around Instagram growth that you want to ask me. I will get back to every single one in the first week. I promise you that. Thanks for the support. Enjoy the rest of the video. So, 3 things you can do to build stronger community. The first one is have a very specific person that you are speaking to with your content. So in Hebe's situation, she was creating content for women who were looking to improve in the gym, lose weight, build a little bit of muscle, and live a happier, healthier life. Most of the time, she was also speaking to young women. I know this because she mentioned it on the podcast. But when you have a really clear person in mind, you can understand what they like, what they don't like, how they think, what sort of stuff they're going to respond to, what speaks to them, what doesn't, and you can create your content and your messaging in a way that speaks directly to them. Then when they see this, they see your content speaking directly to them, it makes more sense for them to follow. Think about it. You vote for your favorite politician because they are speaking directly to you. You fit into whatever group they are speaking to, they speak directly to you, and that's why you passionately love them, you follow them, you vote for them, you argue about them on social media because they speak to you. They've built a community. Now, the second thing that you want to do to build a really cult-like community, and this is actually not something that Hebe mentioned in the interview, but it's something I picked up from a book, Expert Secrets from Russell Brunson, and that is the idea of throwing rocks at the enemy. And that might sound harsh at first, but it is pretty much just find ideas that are wrong and that your community believe are wrong and throw rocks at them. Now, going back to the political examples, this is one thing you'll see big politicians and big political parties use to win elections. You have Party A, which believes in this thing, and their audience, their demographic, believes in the same thing. They believe X is good and Y is bad, and so they will bash Y and talk about how Y is a ridiculous idea. And all of their audience agrees with that. And so that builds a stronger connection. It's a polarizing stance, which tends to cause people to love you or hate you, which is much better than people simply tolerating you. If you've got 10,000 people who tolerate you and they follow you and they kind of like your stuff, they kind of think it's good, then that's all right. But if you have 1/10 of that, you have 1,000 people who absolutely love you, and maybe you have 10,000 people who hate you, you will be much more successful with that, which is why being polarizing, throwing rocks at the ideas you don't agree with, loving the things you do agree with, and being really polarizing in that will help you massively. And if you think about this idea, you will see it in more and more examples. For example, you will see a lot of fitness creators that will throw rocks at all of these fad diets and fad exercises that don't really get results but just sound interesting, and that helps them build a stronger audience. They might call out some ridiculous diet that doesn't work but is clickbaity because some creators just made something up to try and get attention, and then you'll see the genuine creator will throw rocks at that idea, explain why it's not good, and that'll help them deepen their relationship. If you want a more in-depth look at this throw rocks at the enemy idea and in general building a strong audience, I would highly recommend checking out that book, Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Now, the third thing you can do to build this really strong community is literally just reply to all the comments as well as DMs to just foster a strong connection with your audience. Think about how much more of a connection to a celebrity you would have if they were replying to your comments. Think about it. If they posted on Instagram and you comment that, love their new music album, or, love the new movie that they acted in, chances are they're not going to reply. And so you might like that person, but imagine if they were like replying to your comments like, hey, thanks, John. I really appreciate it. Glad you enjoyed the movie. Now, obviously, you're potentially not a celebrity. Understandable. But the same thing can happen on a smaller scale. Someone might really look up to your content and you might have a couple thousand followers. You might not view yourself as a celebrity or someone to look up to, but this person might really love your stuff. And if every time they comment on your post, they then get a reply from you, it's only going to deepen that relationship. So make sure you're replying to people and building conversation in the comment section. If someone takes the time to write a thoughtful comment, not just an emoji or something like that, don't just reply with thanks or the fire emoji or the 100 emoji. Take the time to reply. Take, a couple sentences, and maybe you spark a reply from them, and then you reply, and then they reply, and you build a thread in the comment section. This is what builds community. Like I said earlier in the video, it's not scalable. It's not something that you can do when you've got 100,000 followers and you're getting hundreds of comments on every single post and you're posting a couple times a day and you're trying to run a business, but it is something you can do if you've got a couple hundred, a couple thousand followers. Build up that audience, and then maybe what you do is you, instead of replying to every comment, like as you grow, you just dedicate the same amount of time. So maybe when you first start out, you might only be getting 5 or 6 comments, and you just take the time to reply to all of them, have a conversation, and then as you grow, you might dedicate the first 30 minutes after you post to replying to comments and engaging. And everyone that comments within 30 minutes, you reply to, you have a chat with people, and you build that community. Now, if you enjoyed this content and getting these strategies here, you're going to absolutely love the new podcast. So I'm going to link that below, the YouTube channel, as well as the website where you can find links to Spotify, Apple, and all of the other podcast platforms. And as I mentioned, if you leave a review on Spotify or iTunes, just comment review, followed by your question. I'll answer every single one of them in the first week. That's it from me. Hopefully this was enjoyable, and I will see you all in the next one.